Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition which focuses on two main things. One, the build of the control panel, and the other, an update of where I am on the underground layout. I won't hang around, this is quite a long episode, so let's go and have a look at the start and my thoughts on how I'm going to go about building a control panel for Elvenhome. In the last video I said that I would gird myself to putting in a control panel. I dodged doing it when I first built the layout, and partly that was because I rather liked the idea of a bank of switches, you know, like a signalman's box. Again, naivety, inexperience. I didn't realise that I wouldn't know necessarily from here which way the point was set just by looking at these switches. In fact, so much so that I didn't take care to make sure that I put all these in these cradles so that if the switch is up, it's in the normal position, and if the switch is down, it's diverting the train off the normal course. And some of the points that are around on the layout that are controlled from here, I simply can't see from where I am, and that makes life a little tricky in trying to work out what's going to happen when a train arrives at a particular point, particularly if you're trying to move points whilst trains are running. So you really need a control panel, in my view, with directional lights attached to it. Now, if you're going to build that, it's so much easier to do it when you build the layout, because you can build all the wiring in. And I'm having to go with a slightly different way, using one of the products that I've already mentioned I bought from Heathcote Electronics, and I'll show you that in a minute when I go down to the table to look at the plan for the control panel top. But let me show you, give you an idea of just how much wire may be involved in this. So what you have here are two wires that are coming from the switch underneath the solenoid switch, which is controlling a set of points. And I did at least have the common sense to number them from number 1 to number 19, which come through here. And that is essentially all the points that sit in front of me. This panel doesn't, as you may see, goes up to 25 because it also controls the passing loop on the incline, and it controls the set of points and double slip that are on the layout that give access to the branch line, to the bay line, and control the junction there. So that's why I've got 25 points in all. Now there are two wires that come from each switch, and then below they go below the board. And I will take some footage now underneath which shows the 3 wires that come from each of the switches, because the center pin has the power, and then of course either side is where it will close the switch to make the circuit, and that is all wired in underneath together with the positive feed from the CDU, which is what's giving power to all of the switches. So there's a lot of wire involved in this, and it's a right rat's nest underneath, as you will have seen from the footage that I've just showed you. That I don't need to change. I will need to do something with the wires which you can't see, because they feed under the board and come under the board here, under the layout rather, and come under this control board here. But I have also other wires that need to be fed in because of the way I'm having to sort of kind of retrofit and be able to fit LEDs that will tell me the direction in which a point has been set. Hurrah! So what I'll do now is I will go down onto the desk and show you the start of the control panel, and then I'll come back and show you where the control panel is going to sit, and what I'm going to be using to mount the switches and LEDs in due course. Right, what you can see here, it's two things. Let me move this out of the way so you can see this properly. This is the first iteration of the design for the control panel front, which I've created in Microsoft Excel. And I've broken it into 3 sections. Doesn't really show too well. This section controls the entrance to the bay platform at Weathertop Station, and obviously trains changing from the up and down line if I need to do that. This section controls the loop from Greyhaven Station to Sharkey's End, and the rest is the whole series of junctions and roads that are in front of me when I stand at the control panel, including the line that takes it up to the branch to go around through the tunnel and up out to Greyhavens. So I created this, first of all, to see where I would think I would want to put the lights for each of the switches. And generally speaking, the lights immediately after a switch, moving from left to right, are the ones that show me what that switch has done in terms of changing the train. The yellows are the LEDs. I'm going to be using yellow LEDs to show direction. And the grey that you see here is where there will be one of the momentary switches that I'm going to be using, which are center off, so that it doesn't leave power permanently on. Now, when I designed this, initially all I put was yellow and grey circles on, which are the diameter of the hole that will need to be drilled into the fascia of the control panel. But I've watched a lot of videos, as you might expect. One of them, someone usefully reminded everybody that the hole you drill for the thing to come through will nearly always have something outside it, whether that's a retaining nut, as is the case with the switch, or the outer diameter of the LED holder that will go through the hole and will retain the LED in it when you've done it. So you may be able to see, I'll try and zoom in at this point, but you may be able to see that outside of the grey or the yellow circle, there is a red one. And that is the diameter of the LED holders that I've got. And as it happens, exactly the same as the diameter of the hexagonal nut that retains the switch in the panel. I also drew on this one how I'm intending to route power through each of the switches, because I saw on one of the videos that I watched that rather than having an individual piece of wire soldered to the central pin of the switch, a single piece of wire was used to thread through them all and just bared at the point at which it needed to be attached to the switch. And that looked a jolly good idea to me. So that's what I'm going to do. And you'll probably make out that essentially it's a bit like doing one of those join the dots, really, but it routes its way from this corner, or maybe it will start there, but I started in left to right. It routes its way through them in as nimble a way as it can. The red wire on the current system actually comes in from bottom left. So it may be that I'll start here and work it the other way around. But that means rather than having lots of individual wires dropping down, I've got one doing the job across them all, which will reduce the amount of wires that I need to take off of the switch. It's been through a number of iterations, this thing, because one of the reasons I did this was to help me to see how close individual holes might be, and particularly where they might be too close, either from the point of view of leaving too little material between each of the individual holes that might snap, or that when you actually put all the wires and bits in from the other side, you can't fit everything in. So the second or third iteration was this one, where I'd moved things a bit. And picking up an idea from somebody else, I punched out using some leather punches, which I bought. They're very cheap. the holes, so that I could actually see what was left after you create the holes. And actually, funnily enough, you get a much better idea by looking at the back because you're not distracted by the lines. As a result of that, and this I think is the third or fourth iteration after the one you've just seen, this is the almost final version where things have moved. I've adjusted the angle at which things are done and moved things up so that I can be sure that there is enough room for everything when you start poking it through from the other side. And I haven't yet, but I will punch out the holes here. And actually I probably feed a number of switches through in the places where I'm just not sure whether the holders will that hold the LEDs will fit. But that once I've got the final version, because this is the full size, and once it's punched out, I will be able to attach to the front of the fascia. And this blue thing, it isn't actually blue, it's white, but it's still got its protective sheet on, is some 3mm perspex, white perspex, which I've had cut to the size that I need. I actually got 2 pieces of it on the basis that I've never cut perspex before. I have bought drills that are supposed to be good for cutting perspex, and you'll see those when I actually come to do the work. But if anything goes horribly wrong, and given that these have to be custom cut, they weren't very expensive. I think they're about £8 each. It just made sense to get 2 of them because I'm sure I'll be able to use the other one for something at some point. So that's what the fascia is going to look like and how I'm going to work out how to drill all the holes. And then I'm going to use, I had them here and they've disappeared. No, they aren't. Here they are. I'm going to use lining tape. These are 5 rolls of lining tape of various colours. In the middle there's a black one, and I'm almost certain I'll use the black one. Because once I've got the holes in place, I can use the lining tape to essentially follow the diagram that I've created in Excel to give me the fascia panel. The lettering, I probably will use water slide transfers, and I just need to see whether I use clear transfers or whether I use ones that have got a white backing on them and do them in that. So that's where I am with that. The only other thing to show you is the unit that I'll be using, and I'll take this up onto the layout now and show you it up on the layout, that I'll be using that will control the LEDs that I mentioned I got from Clive. Essentially what this does is it works out, it detects the pulse when I turn this switch momentarily. Let's get the switch the way around. There we go. So when you pull it back, and it will detect that you've pulled it back and closed the circuit there, which means that in addition to the 2 wires that need to come away from here that run to the solenoid motors, I have to wire another 2 wires on that go into these ports. Now, Clive Heathcote has on his YouTube channel, how all this works. And I'm not going to try and explain it to you because I'm not that hot on electronics. So I'll put a link in the description below to the video where he shows you this working. But essentially it detects which way you've thrown the switch, and one or other of 2 LEDs that are wired into the supports there will come on depending which way you've thrown the switch. And I've got 7 of these because each one of these will look after 4 switches. But I'll go up on the layout now and show you where this is going to be. time for an update on the underground layout. And a number of things have actually been taken forward over the last month or so. I showed you this diagram in the last video, which shows both the track plan and the positions at which infrared detectors will be set that the shuttle will use to control the underground train as it leaves platform 1, goes all the way round, pauses at the GO station, then proceeds into platform 2, waits, goes back out and does it all in reverse. As I said at the beginning of the video, I had brilliant service from Clyde Heathcote, and that is the shuttle which controls the trains, the train, and also the signals, which will change to, and then the train will move off. And here is one of the 6 infrared detectors, which I'll need to wire in. The system is entirely run from a transformer, a 12-volt transformer. So it's effectively a DC that the line will be powered, because this also, the shuttle also obviously powers the line. So I'll be using effectively DC to run this. There just isn't a need for DCC. There's no need to buy chips for there's only one train running on it. So that's bought and ready to run. Talking about the signals, I had a number of really useful responses specifically about signals. They were all useful responses, of course, to the last video. Some pointing me in the direction of possible commercially made signals that I might be able to use or adapt. But I had a suggestion from Arthur Merrychurch. Arthur has always given me great suggestions. His suggestion was for the creation of the quarry face. But he said to me that given that London Underground lights are usually in the tunnel, maybe rather than trying to build something to fit the LEDs that I showed into, use some heat shrink and heat shrink a red and a green light together. And I thought that was brilliant. So I'm certainly going to do that. And then separately, Alan at Hayridge Model Rail reminded me of nanolights, which I've used them, I think, on the hotel, but I'd completely forgotten about them. But he thought that actually a red and a green nanolight would make life a lot simpler in trying to build my own signals. And of course, marrying Arthur's suggestion and Alan's suggestion, I can see a way of being able to build really easily the red and the green light that I'd need for the signals. So I got myself some red and green nano lights, and I had indeed wired up a red and a green to show you, but unfortunately I was rather rough with the green one and tore the black wire off the LED, which obviously tells me to be a lot more careful in the way that I manage those things, and not to be, such an animal. So if I can get this to stay on, there we go, it's staying on now. Here's one of the red nano lights, and you can see how small it is. I'll put my finger to it and put it side on. So one of those with a green one mounted on top in some heat shrink, I can see working very well indeed. So that thank you both to for those suggestions. I may still have a look at buying one or more of the commercial units, just to make sure that because they're always useful to have around and they're not horribly expensive. But thank you for that. As far as the baseboard goes, only this week I had a very positive response from a company in Fife that make custom baseboards. You may recall that I'm having the baseboard made because I live in a flat, I don't own any woodwork tools, and I have nowhere in which to do any serious woodworking. So building my own really isn't an option. And in any event, from the conversation I've had, they will design for me a custom baseboard for the thing that I want to do on the 2 levels, and then produce it in kit form that I can then put together. So I'm hoping to speak to them tomorrow. I'm recording this Wednesday morning, and I doubt I won't have time to put that into this. I'll tell you the outcome of all that in the next video. The urgency in buying the baseboard, I think, is receding somewhat, because Revolution Trains are now estimating Q2, Q3 for arrival of the 1938 stock. They haven't yet closed the order book, which was meant to be at the end of December, is now meant to be at the end of January. So we'll see if that happens tomorrow or on Friday. But the reality with Chinese New Year and an 8-week delivery date once they've got them produced must suggest that actually Q3 is more likely than Q2. However, I am going to Model Rail Scotland in February, and I hope at that point to be able to confirm the overall length of a 7-car unit, and that which is on the website, that it is still radius 2 is the minimum radius, and the radii of all these curves is greater than minimum 2. In fact, I don't think any of them is less than a radius 3 curve. So I think the last thing to update you on is the track. I did get from a couple of these inspection pits, which many of you will have used. It comes in 6 parts with 4 rails that you slide into a groove on which is modelled on the top what are supposed to be the chairs retaining the track. And the thing is, this really will do exactly what I want it to do in terms of producing the drainage pits. In fact, more so. If I hold it up, I don't know if you can just about see, there you go, pretty much in the center of the screen now, that molded into the inspection pits are drainage holes. Now those would be really useful for mounting some of the posts on which the center conductor rail would need to sit. The only thing, however, is that if I use these, I don't really think I'm going to be able to adapt them to be able to use code 40 track. The code 40 track is so much thinner than, if I I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well. Let's get this here. Is that in focus? Maybe. But it's so much thinner than the code 55, particularly at the base. And I don't think you would be able to use code 55 and then move to code 40. And why would I do that on the track that's off camera? So I think it unlikely that I'll use code 40 now, though I'm quite keen on building something. So whether I do a little shunting layout as a side project or not, I don't know. But I think this will give me the solution, in which case this was all built using code 55 FlexiTrack, and that's what I'll just build it in, which in some ways obviously is a lot simpler, and I'm happy using FlexiTrack. I've used that many times before. So the underground layout is moving ahead. It is possible in the next month or so that I may actually acquire the bits for the baseboard, which would be quite good, because building the base of the track is fairly straightforward. Now, I think that updates you as much as I can on the underground layout. Let's go back to building the control panel. I think I was a little ambitious when I said I would show you all the modules in place, because I'd forgotten that the last time I set them out, it was when I had the board on top, and there's all wires and stuff in where the modules will have to be. It's worth remembering that when I put the control panel in its place, all of these of course will go, and the wires coming out from here will not dive under the board. They won't need to, because they'll be being wired into the control panel. And then the wires coming down from the control panel will go into these units, and then wires will come from this unit back up to the LEDs. So there's going to be an absolute nest of wires which needs to go in here, which is why I decided on the width of the perspex. This will move up to the far end, these pieces will come off completely. And I've already got a piece of wood which will help me to, which will go there, and the control panel will sit on the top of this and be screwed into it, and I'll have to build an equivalent slope and piece of wood on this side, which I think shouldn't be too difficult, he said. But taking the perspex that I bought, and remember this is 2 boards, so it looks thicker than it is, but that is going to sit like that when it's finished, and we'll have obviously the diagram on top and all the switches and lights, and that will be the new control panel, and will look, I think, a lot better. So that's pretty much everything on the control panel. Let's go on to the next section. Well, I hope you enjoyed the running session. I thought you deserved a second running session after all the talk. I mean, when it comes round, it's on its way round now. I have just realised, having completed now editing the running sessions, that I managed to put a cattle truck immediately behind the little Ivet. And if you're downwind of that, I imagine it's a pretty unpleasant experience in the passenger coaches. But never mind, you can't have everything. I am actually recording this now on Thursday afternoon, and I've had the telephone conversation about the design of the baseboards, and that is looking very promising. So I hope by the time next time we speak, I'll be able to give you a very positive update about the baseboards. So I think that pretty much concludes everything that I need to tell you about, except to say that doing this video and having so much to talk about has made me realize that maybe I need to go back to doing fortnightly ones to try and keep these within a reasonable bounds. This one's going to come out at 30 minutes. I've re-recorded 2 sections because it was actually using them was going to get up to about 40 minutes, which is too long. So I'll do another video in a couple of weeks' time just to give you an update of where we are on everything that's going on and how far I've got in doing the control panel. I suspect once I start it won't take me very long, but I'm going to give it a few days after this video because, as always, people's comments are just so helpful, and just in case there's anything I've missed which one of you may spot before I actually start work on doing the control panel. If you do have any comments of any kind, please do let me have them. You'll have seen from this video just how helpful comments are, and it's one of the joys of YouTube, as I've said before. So until I speak to you in a fortnight's time, that's pretty much everything from me. So that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.